Welcome to Crushing 1L, a show about how to look well rested when you've actually had no rest. I'm Abhi, a 1L at Penn Law, and my co-host Aaminah is a 1L at UCLA Law. Aaminah, our first topic, keeping your sanity during a hard week at law school. How was your week? Talk to us about how it was hard and how you stayed sane.
Honestly, Abby, my week was so hard. I don't even remember what was so difficult about it because I've trauma blocked it. Like, I'm saying that jokingly, but I actually kind of been it. I'm thinking back to like what made my week so difficult. I feel like I got kind of lost this week.
We're in the swing of things. That's part of it. We're like 3 or 4 weeks
Yeah.
in, so we're coming up on the first month, and we've now covered enough stuff to where it's starting to muddle together.
Oh, yeah. You know what it is? I just peeked at my calendar. I had an event, a lunch event, and some dinners pretty much every single day this week. In addition to, we had a research assignment from legal research and writing and a writing assignment also from LRW this week. In addition to all of the regular workload from my classes. So I had genuinely a really hard week. It was so hard. I made a mental note to myself, like, I need to come on this podcast and be super honest about how difficult this week was. Um, yeah, so that's why my week was hard. And then the balance of how I stayed sane this week. Um, Two things. I gave myself grace. So I just like at some
It's
moments had to be
important.
like, yeah, some things are just not going to get done. I'm just not gonna finish reading this case or do whatever it is that like I wanted to get done, but like just ran out of time for. And that's where I'm at this week and what I'm gonna have to deal with and budget for moving forward. And then the second thing, I felt like kind of ungrounded this week, so it was really important to me to find a way to be regrounded. And I went to one of my org meetings this week, and they were mentioning a volunteer opportunity. And I just committed to myself that I was going to go ahead and do that. So I did that yesterday. It was um, a volunteer activity at 6:30 in the morning, which it's early, but it was okay because I'm always up by 6 a.m. in any case. So yeah, and it was super it was really good to like, just I really believe that a huge component of good self-care is community care. And so yeah, it was important to me to care for myself by getting involved with my community and doing something selfless, but like, that wasn't for me. Um yeah,
Yeah.
that's how I stayed safe this week.
That's awesome, and I think you really hit on the things that made these last couple weeks difficult and challenging for most of us. I think in our 1L year, um, we're getting to the point where our days are so busy that our processing time that we might have had in the first couple weeks after class to kind of decompress and marinate all the stuff we just learned and read and talked about, the processing time is dwindling because there's events to go to, there's clubs to be a part of, and all there's too many things to do and not enough time. So that's definitely something I relate to. But I'm really glad to hear that you spent time doing something that kind of filled your cup in like an emotional, spiritual way. Serving the community is a really that you hit the nail on the head. Serving others helps you serve yourself. So that's really awesome. It's also a good reminder of like I think most of us enjoy helping people. That's kind of the thing that we do as attorneys.
Right.
So it's
Right.
it's gonna be important to kind of remember that. I tried to do something similar. I made time for stuff that would fill my cup in ways that law school isn't. So for me, that's like exercising group sports. I went to a group sports activity through the law school. Shout out Penn Boxing. It was just such a blast to just kind of get some stress out, sweat with some friends, and get yelled at, and just like take out aggression on the bag. Um, and yeah, and the service to others component is really important. I'm signed up for a couple of pro bono projects because I want to remember why I'm here. And yes, like the jobs will come and the academic learning will happen, but I think a really essential part of a lot of attorneys, like like nice rounded life, is doing stuff like service and pro bono stuff. So I'm really glad to hear you doing it too. We got to stay sane, dude. We got to stay sane. There's a lot of stuff. We're being pulled in a lot of directions. So we might
Yeah.
as well choose a couple of the directions that we're being pulled.
That is so huge. Yeah. To have a little just a little agency is good.
Yeah, a little agency, and also it's like we're juggling a lot of stuff. I had a mentor once tell me that you're never in life are you going to not be juggling stuff, but what's important is figuring out which things you're juggling are bowling pins and which things you're juggling are chainsaws. Right? You can't
Oh,
drop the chainsaws. You might be able to drop a bowling pin or two and still be fine. So
yeah.
it's all about priorities, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Second topic. I think this is something you wanted to talk about. Legal writing. You mentioned we have a legal writing assignment. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I actually spent like all of yesterday writing my very first um legal research and writing assignment, which is like a little baby mini legal memo. Um what to say? What to say about my memo?
So many things to say. How do we choose?
No, okay. I just okay. So what is a legal memo? That's what we should start.
That's a great question. What is a memo?
Yes. What is a memo? So essentially, this assignment, the way it functions is that you get a fact pattern. Um, Ours is like it's about a high school student and a charge that was brought against him for an interaction with another student. And so we get the details of like a little bit of the prior history and then the facts related to the incident. And then in addition to that, we get like some of the deposition and testimony of the witnesses. And then we also get a case to compare the fact pattern to kind of extract a rule and test for making arguments about the fact pattern that we were given. And so for our legal memo, specifically what we're doing for my assignment, we had to give the statement of facts, which is just a neutral relating of the facts in the fact pattern. And then we have the discussion, which is like what we think the court is likely to decide, arguments for that conclusion, arguments against that conclusion, and then rebuttals to the counter arguments. And then we just restate our conclusion. And that is what we had to do for this assignment.
Yeah, and that's a description of like IRAC or CREAC or like insert structure, legal argument structure here.
Yeah.
But the gist of it is we are learning how to write legal arguments in an organized way.
And Abby, you just used some acronyms,
I
IRAC and
did.
CREAC. Ours is CURPAC, which is conclusion, rule proof, arguments. I think it's analysis or maybe application. I don't know.
Well,
I did the work.
it doesn't. The A doesn't matter, right? Like
Yeah.
analysis, argument, like whatever. Who cares?
Yeah. And then the last C is conclusion again.
Conclusion again, yeah.
Which one
And
are you guys given?
we write CREAC, so conclusion, rule, explanation, analysis, or argument, or application.
Yeah.
And the last C is conclusion again. It's always helpful to kind of tell people up front what you're going to argue, do the reasoning, and then remind them again, hit them again.
Yeah.
And therefore this. Our assignment sounds pretty similar. We have the same thing set up, the same setup at least. Somebody got in trouble. We work for a criminal defense firm. Our we call it legal practice skills at Penn. Our legal practice skills professor is our supervising attorney. So we are writing a memo to our supervisor, analyzing the case and comparing and contrasting the facts of the case and the rules of the case with the facts and the rules from similar cases in the jurisdiction. So it seems like a very, very similar setup. And folks, this is probably what your first writing assignment in law school is going to look like. Some version of this where you get facts, you get a few cases, you put them together, you write a memo kind of explaining, comparing and contrasting.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting, you go our professor gave us sort of an example of how this should look, and I'm reading over this example, I'm like, yeah, definitely, I get it. If you take each component part of this assignment and just do this one part, I'm like, yeah, sure, I get it. But as I was going through and writing this assignment, I literally pulled out a rule, pulled out a test, because in our case, they didn't give us like a explicit test, so we had to kind of create one that was like a paraphrase of what they ruled in the case. But nonetheless, I made my little test and then I'm like writing and I'm like, oh, well, actually, if that's the test, like he actually may not have met that element or like he may not have, satisfied that test in the way that I thought he
Right.
did initially. Like it
You
seems
like
so
write yourself out of your own argument. Yeah, it
yeah.
happens.
Yeah, I was like when I'm reading the case, I'm like, well, this is obviously A, and I'm writing and I'm like, oh, well, if A is supposed to be this and this is what I was given, like maybe it's actually B because you didn't actually do A, you did C, and it can't be A if it's C, so maybe it's B. I don't yeah.
I had a very similar situation.
Yeah.
I would so we essentially have two core issues that we're writing about in our memo. And you're right. When you break it up into parts, man, does it seem feasible, right? It seems very, very doable when you're like, okay, let me just write a couple paragraphs about this issue, and then later I'll write a couple paragraphs about this other issue, this other element. And then you start to put stuff together and you're like, I don't think that what I think happened here. I've written myself out of my own argument. So
Yeah.
at some point, I was just like, I'm going to pick a side and stick to it.
Yeah.
And of course, we're trying to be objective, but you have to recommend something. You can't just, if I was writing an email to Ben and Nate and they asked me for a recommendation and I wrote them an email that was like, man, I don't know, this is a hard question, they'd be like, you're fired, right? So like ultimately, when your boss or your supervisor or your whatever, your peer, your colleague, whatever, asks you for a recommendation, you have to make a recommendation as
Yeah.
close of a call as it might be. It is our job to make a decision about stuff.
Yeah, I mean, something I always keep in mind, especially to that, I mean, like in and out of the law school, but like people don't want problems, they want solutions. So, like, what is the
Yeah.
solution? Like, at the end of the
Right.
day, what's the solution?
Right. Well, if this question wasn't a close call, would I be
Yeah,
asking for your help? No.
right,
Right. If
right.
and so I think a couple times somebody asked like, "Hey, why don't we just pull a case that's like super close to the facts of this case?" And our professor was like, "Then I wouldn't. Then you wouldn't have a job, right? If I could just pull a case about the topic, then I would just do that and then show it to the judge and go, Your Honor, here's it's decided, right?
Case
It's like
closed. It's
case
over.
closed, literally. Yeah. So yeah, it's the whole point of us existing is that there's sometimes close calls. In fact, often close calls on stuff. Things are unclear, and people will pay you a lot of money or time or both to hear your recommendation and your analysis of that situation.
Yeah. But so that was the legal memo. Sounds like we kind of had similar experiences in the actual writing of it. But the other interesting thing about the legal memo is that so for us, we turn our legal memo first into our writing advisor, which is just like a student who went through the class, did well, and is now advising us.
We have the same
Um,
thing, yeah.
yeah, okay, cool. So I'm turning this into my writing advisor who will then read it, and I have heard whisperings that like you get pages of like commentary and edits on your 5 page. My assignment is only 5 pages, and yet I hear it's like double that in terms of like comments and review. So
Wow.
I'm really looking forward to that. I mean, honestly, I know a lot of people like that's kind of an ego crusher for them to have so many like marks. I'm sure it will be for me as well. Like, I- it's my inclination to think that I'm naturally perfect. No, but
But I mean, feedback is so important. Like, I
yeah,
selfishly, I want as much feedback as I can get because I want a human being to tell me, hey, this worked, this didn't. Here's how you fix it.
yeah,
It's invaluable.
yeah, and that's what I'm thinking too. Like, I don't know what I'm doing, so like, thank goodness I'm gonna have somebody who's gonna tell me, here's everything that you did wrong and how we can make it better. Like, God bless, need that. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, getting feedback this early in a process where we're literally learning how to construct legal sentences, let alone legal argument. Like, I would go so far as to say I don't even know how to structure a legal argument. I'm
Yeah.
figuring out how to structure a legal sentence, right?
Hmm.
So we're like crawl, walk, run. We're in the crawl stage. Give me as much feedback as you can. I'm appreciative of every bit of it. I think feedback feels different when you actually think you're good at something, and then you
Hmm.
get a bunch of feedback, and you're like,
Oh
oh,
yeah,
that actually hurt my feelings a little bit. but
yeah,
but right
yeah.
now we're resilient because we're crawling. So somebody
Yeah.
giving us advice is super helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm glad to be on the other side of having actually written the memo. Like I'm so glad to send it now to get it out of my computer and send it to somebody else and like now you deal with it and you get back to me. But yeah,
It's
that was the
super
legal
nice.
memo.
It's super nice to hit save on a document and be like, I am done writing this. I'm going to submit it
Yeah.
or send it to whoever submit it. Man,
Hmm.
that's such a good feeling. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, and to be clear, folks, like I think it's worth like kind of talking about the difference between like a memo and a brief. A memo is for something like an internal organizational communication. Maybe a supervising attorney has asked you for some analysis. So it is a formal document, but it's to somebody in your organization.
Hmm.
A brief is a bit more formal because it sometimes goes to like a judge or the leader of some sort of organization or something, or another party in a legal matter. So those are a little bit different. Again, I can't speak with any kind of like qualification. I don't know what makes a brief different, like harder or anything. I just know that. I know that distinction. So if anybody's out there listening and they're like, what's the difference between a memo and a brief? I think that's
Yeah.
one of the differences.
Yeah. I would concur. I mean, and then also that brief and a legal brief versus a case brief, two
Oh
different
yeah.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Case brief. Yeah. Case brief for yourself. Legal brief for the eyes of somebody else, usually external to your immediate organization.
Yeah.
Cool.
Legal memo internal. All right.
Legal memo internal.
But yeah, that's that on the legal memo. I more updates next week after I have my 15 pages of feedback.
That's crazy. Yeah, I got like a page of feedback from my fellow, my like writing
Okay.
advisor. And it was super helpful. And he actually made the time to sit down with each of us and sit down for 30 minutes and kind
Yeah.
of talk about it, which was super nice of him.
Yeah.
It was very generous. Like our writing fellows are pretty busy. Like they're law students and they're making time
Yeah.
to advise us on this stuff. So God bless them.
Yeah.
Yeah, more updates, folks. We'll let you know how we did. I'm gonna try to submit mine soon. I kind of I want to stay ahead of the writing assignments, so I'm gonna try to submit mine soon. But yeah, we'll keep you updated. I know people at home are like, I'm so interested in how Abhi and Amina are doing in their classes. So
Why else are you here? Why
why else
else are
are you
you
here? In
here?
fact, why else are you here?
Exactly.
Well, there's one reason they might be here, Amina, and it might be that they have questions about 1L that they may or may not have submitted, and they might be hoping and waiting for our answers. So that's my
Mm.
segue to the next segment, listener questions. Amina, I
Segway.
believe you had a question you wanted to address.
Yeah, so I met a transfer student recently while I was waiting for my bus. Shout out to public transportation. I met a transfer student who told me that she was pre-law and we got talking. And she had mentioned that in her decision on what she wanted to study once she transferred to now UCLA, she had called a couple of law school admissions offices trying to figure out what would be the best major for success in, I mean, going towards law school. So that to me, I was like, that's an interesting question. I feel like we get that a lot of basically like what major is going to do the best to set you up for success in law school. The answer you will hear a lot is political science. What I'm going to tell you, I think what Abby will concur with is that is a myth. That is a myth. Um, Abby, thoughts?
It's one of those myths that exists because a lot of law students happen to be political science majors, but it is certainly not necessary, and it is also
Yeah.
not sufficient. It is not is neither necessary nor sufficient to being a successful law student. But yeah, back to you. That's my initial thoughts. But yeah, back to you.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I'm a poli sci major, Abby. What are you?
I was an electrical engineering and economics major.
So there you have it. Not a poli sci major. As a poli sci major, I just did poli sci help me coming into law school? I mean, have I read cases before? Yes. Have I read cases in the way that it matters to law school? No. Do I understand legal terminology from having read cases? No. Like, I'm still kind of starting from scratch. Granted, I finished my poli sci degree 3 to 4 years ago. I don't remember at this point, but so there has been some time also. So also if you're going to get your poli sci degree and then take time like even more to that point. But like even still, I mean again, like yes, I have like have I written a memo before? Like sort of, but not like what I'm doing right now. Totally different from what I'm doing right now. And yeah, like it just did I don't think it really prepped me in a significant way where I was like so glad I was a political science major before coming into law school. Like huge, needed that. No. I think really just like follow your passions and become an interesting person and like use that to like boost your law school application. That's what my advice would be.
I think you said something really important too that I want to emphasize, and it's that a lot of people, an increasing number of people, and in fact, in my 1L class, the majority of incoming 1Ls or current 1Ls had time between their undergrad degrees and their legal education. So as that gap widened, and I had several years, and I'm not alone. Like the majority of our class has had several years, not even just one or two, but several years between undergraduate education and our legal education. And as that gap continues to widen, it matters more and more that you choose an education and a major that challenges you
Hmm.
and that helps you learn how to think critically and solve problems and communicate clearly. Those are things you're going to learn in many majors. Any major
Yeah.
that challenges you and asks you to do those things, whether it's STEM or political science or philosophy or something anywhere in between, as long as you're being challenged and you are improving those core skills of critical thinking, communication, and problem solving, learning how to learn even, those are the cheesy lines you get from a lot of people. But unfortunately, I'm so sad to report that those are actually real skills that you learn in college and that you learn in your work. So, more and more important are those skills, and less important are any concrete skills you may pick up in undergrad, mostly because you're not going to remember many of them.
Yeah.
If you handed me a circuit diagram right now, I don't know if I would be able to parse it. I would be able to point at some of the stuff and go, yeah, I know what that is. I know what this is. But I'm not going to be able to design a semiconductor diagram, almost 10 years removed from taking my semiconductors class. That would be ridiculous. But what I can still pull on and what I can still draw from those courses that I took in undergrad are my problem solving skills and my resilience and learning how to navigate complex problems and thinking critically and then communicating the solutions clearly. Those are all skills that matter a ton in law school and in life. Hot take. Those are like life skills. Turns out those are the skills we're building when we're 18 to 22. It turns out that you're not actually very qualified to do much of anything after an undergraduate education. You build those basic foundational skills, and then you go and you learn how to apply them in specific contexts. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I agree, and like to that point, like when I say follow your passions, I just mean to say like don't do a major that you don't care about because you think it's going to like propel you in terms of your law school success. Because like uh, speaking from my own experience, I like I did poli sci because I'm like, okay, like this is the law school major, so and I want to go to law school, so I'll do this major. But like I didn't get anything from being a poli sci major that was, I feel like, particularly impactful to me because I didn't really like I wasn't particularly interested in poli sci. Like the thing that interested me the most.
is anyone particularly interested in poli
I
sci?
mean,
I don't
according to
think
this girl
so.
I met, Alaria, hello. According to her, she said that she is actually genuinely interested in political science and therefore she's taking that major. But like the most interesting part of political science to me was like reading con law, doing criminal procedure, like the brief things that touched on like the law, like okay, but like again, so different from law school, and like there are ways that I could have interacted with interesting material outside of political science that I actually really wanted to study that I sacrificed to then study political science
You
instead.
can just take those classes too, right?
Yeah,
If anybody's listening that's an undergrad, like yeah, go sign up for a law class, dude. You don't have to be any kind of major. At least at Yale, we didn't have to be any specific major to sign up for any classes, unless there were like some prerequisites associated with them. But
sure.
like besides that, I mean, yeah, go explore stuff. Not everything has to be contained in like a tight little neat container of like I
Hmm.
studied this because this is my major. I would encourage people think outside the box a little bit and be more flexible in your education because that flexibility is the actual value of your education rather than any like substantive skills that you may or may not be building at college.
Yeah. So that's my
Cool.
take
All
on
right.
what major is going to set you up for success. Alara, I hope that was helpful.
Awesome.
Anybody who's in her shoes, I hope that that helps you.
Yeah, thanks for writing in, Alaria, or I guess like writing it in person because I think she just
Yeah,
talked to you to your face. She just talked face to face.
perfect. I
Incredible,
downloaded question asked, answered.
incredible, incredible. I wanted to hit a question, Amina, that we got from one of our teammates. Demon colleague Robert asked, What's something you wish you were better prepared for that would have made a big impact during 1L? Improving typing skills, starting to read 1L cases over the summer, learning outlining or briefing techniques? The short answer, Robert, and I'm going to turn to Aaminah because I want to hear your perspective on this too. The short answer, Robert, so far at least, and again, we're a month in, so we're experts. The short answer is no. And it's kind of related to what Aaminah just answered for Alaria. There's not really any specific skills that you can prepare for that are going to make that big of an impact during 1L. The fact of the matter is we're learning a lot of stuff from scratch anyway, and
Yeah.
whatever you might do over the summer might in fact build bad habits.
Mm,
And we don't want you to like feel like you have to do this gargantuan lift over the summer or the year before you start school, essentially learning school before you start, because that might be in fact counterproductive. uh I don't know, that's my initial take.
yeah, my answer to the question, like improving typing skills, reading over the summer, outlining and briefing techniques, like none of that. None of that I feel like would be as helpful to me as the thing I really wish I had cemented and prepared better before coming to law school and just generally in life, which we talked about last week, is time management. Like none of
Yeah,
those things matter if you're not managing your time well enough that you're completing tasks. So for me, like developing a better schedule, learning how to manage my schedule better would have been so much more useful because now I'm kind of like those are the things that like you kind of rely on instinctively, like the habits that you're building where you're like, okay, like when I'm in crisis mode, like this is how I manage my time.
yeah.
If you're not doing practice of that, like you're going to have poor time management likely if you've not had good time management prior to coming to law school.
Yeah, and this is something that like I think a lot of people have learned if if they've ever worked professionally or if they've ever like served in the military or done anything like that, like where like when shit hits the fan, you go on autopilot. So what is your autopilot? Right? So I'm thankfully I had a little bit more of a robust like time management autopilot. Just because I've been in stressful situations and had a lot of a lot of bowling pins and chainsaws to juggle,
Yeah.
and so I've learned kind of how I default to prioritizing tasks, which has been helpful. Um, but I will say something that helped me with my time management and prioritization. This is going to sound so cheesy. Please forgive me, folks. Unfortunately, crushing 1L did help, right? It did super help because some of the basics, some of the law school basics that some of our attorneys and law students have put together, they helped me prioritize stuff. They're like, hey, dude, and it's kind of what Amina just said, right? Hey, dude, it's about getting shit done, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how carefully you organize your brief. It doesn't really matter how carefully you organize any of this shit. Uh, what matters is doing stuff and learning from
Right.
doing stuff.
Hmm.
So that's kind of helped. And it's again, it's that perspective that we are lucky enough to get from our peers and our colleagues and our attorney like mentors because we are privileged enough to be in this community. But I mean that's what's nice about this podcast and that's what's nice about the demon is hey, y'all are in the community too. So yeah, like learn from us and learn from what our mentors have told us. Time management, execution of tasks, prioritization, those things matter. How fast you type doesn't really fucking matter. I can't even type in class, Amina. I don't even have my laptop. We don't have any
That's so
technology allowed.
true. That's
Yeah.
right.
So I don't really care how fast I type. Now, will that be more relevant when we like have to type our final exams? Maybe, but I don't know. You have
Yeah.
like 3 or 4 hours to do those. I'm not that bad of a typer by default.
Yeah.
So if you're one of those people who like pecs,
Don't do that.
maybe do like those online typing games,
Yeah.
but yeah, ultimately, like all of this stuff, I think seems really overwhelming, and I think like Robert's not the only one who's thinking about this stuff because this got a ton of likes on our Slack channel too.
Yeah.
Like, do you read cases over the summer? Like, probably not, right? Like,
I
you
I
don't
I just
really
don't think
even
it's
know how.
necessary.
No, it's not
Yeah.
necessary, and you don't know how. I think what's more important is trying to like have a game plan of how you're going to do 1L in your head,
Yeah.
and like Amina said, like when shit hits the fan, your body and your brain are going to default to some autopilot. What is that autopilot? Right? Are
Yeah.
you a disciplined, rigorous person on autopilot? Be honest with yourself. If you're not, those are the things you need to work on, not any specific skill or task.
Yeah. Huge agree. Although really quickly to the practicing typing, I recently discovered this website called typelit.io, which basically like you can practice typing by typing literature, like novels like 1984, Count of Monte Cristo, Jane Eyre, so on and
Wow.
so forth. So, I mean, if that's something you want to spend your time doing because you just have so much of it, go
Wait,
check
what
it
is that?
out.
What is
But
it? What's the name of that site? I might just check it out too, just to
it's
see.
called typelit.io. So
Okay, cool. That's awesome.
typelit.io.
That's
Yeah.
very cool. And I'm sure it's all like open source lit, so you're not like copywriting any. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Almost
that's
certainly.
very cool. I have to check that out. Not because I feel like I have to improve my typing skills, but I'm just kind
Just
of
for
interested
fun.
in. Yeah, that sounds fun.
Yeah.
Um, like just to kind of put another note on this, learning outlining and briefing techniques. So actually, shout out to Aaron, one of our attorney teammates. Aaron just taught a workshop on how to brief a case. So we are here to support you if you have these questions and when you have these questions. There's a balance between being eager to learn how to outline or how to brief and feeling pressured that you already have to have a system in place. You
Yeah.
don't have to have a system in place. There's a reason that we taught the briefing workshop in September because
Yeah.
it's in case any Demon students or Demon community members were starting law school, you should start thinking about briefing in like August and September. We're gonna host timely workshops that kind of line up with where you might think might need to be depending on where you are in your career. But we're not gonna what we're not gonna do is make a 0L feel like they have to have a briefing technique before they even
Mm,
start law school. I think
yeah.
that way lies madness and ruin.
Yeah, I agree. Like these are things you learn. Like even I don't know if I'm sure they have this at your school, Abby, but like we have a professor who literally does workshops, also timely workshops throughout the semester to give you best practices for how
Yeah,
to go through the semester. Like I mean, I will say on Monday we have the outlining our outlining workshop, which I mean, in some for some professors they would say that's a little early. Like if you want to start doing it now too, I mean, I don't know what he's gonna say, but I'm sure he'll like give us some disclaimers on that. But like, yeah, they're like these are things that you'll learn in school in time. Like you don't have to
hmm,
come in and be like, yeah, I know how to outline. No, you don't, because you've never actually done the real
yeah,
practical work.
yeah. And our professors, yeah, like I think we're doing an outlining workshop too. Yeah, we have the same thing, and it's going to be in
Yeah.
like late September, early October. And it, the point is that there's no right or wrong way to do any of this stuff, and the beauty is that you will learn how to do it, and we're here to support you when you do learn. But you have to kind of suck at it first.
Hmm.
Like I actually want you to go try to brief a case yourself before you come to Aaron's next workshop, right? Because I want you to know how it feels to kind of not like to kind of wander and like not really even know what you're looking for. You get to the end of the
Yeah.
opinion and you're like, wait, what? Like, what did the
Right.
judge even? It says affirmed and or reversed and remanded at the end, and you're like, I don't know why it was reversed or remanded. and
What does it
as you
mean that it was remanded?
Right,
Like,
exactly, right.
yeah.
It's like why is the judge remanding? And folks, remanding means you send it back to the lower court to kind of redo some stuff based on whatever
Bam.
notes. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Wow.
yeah, wow, legal word of the week. Well, we have more for you there,
We'll get
but
to that. Yeah.
yeah, but maybe
Just
that's kind
one
of an
week they're
ad
in for
hoc.
no charge.
Yeah, no charge. That's free 99, baby, is remanded. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's like you get to the end of the opinion for the first couple times, and you're like, brother, if you put a gun to my head and offered me $1 million, I couldn't tell you what this opinion said.
Yeah.
And that's important. Like go through that, kind of learning process. And sure, like, is this stuff you could do over the summer? Absolutely. Should you feel pressure to? No, absolutely not. Either way, we are here. Like this community is here to kind of be by your side as you navigate all of this stuff, and that's what makes it a little bit more fun, less stressful, and
Hmm.
more like growth mindset. Like we're
Yeah.
getting better together. You don't have
Yeah.
to start out good.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So that's the note on that, Robert. And other listeners. Hope that
Yeah.
helps.
Thanks, folks, for sending us your questions. Anybody who has a question about anything 1L related, you can always write into us at crushing1l.com. That's the number one. So it's crushing the number 1l.com. And we're happy to answer your questions on the air. And we really appreciate you guys writing in.
Yep. Okay. Segue.
Yeah, next segment, next segment. Yes, we're trying to be clear about segueing to our segments because we want this to be easier to follow along. And folks, we really appreciate your patience. We're getting better every time we record, so really appreciate your guys' time and listening to us yap about law school. Amina, the next segment we have, the current event segment that we always have every week. What's on the
Yes.
docket today? What current event caught your eye this week?
Well, so interestingly, this current event actually harkens back to a current event we had way at the start of this podcast, which was the big, beautiful bill and the potential impacts it would have on student loans, and specifically, obviously, student loans in law school. The title of this article that I saw this week is This Law School is Offering Guaranteed Scholarships to Incoming Students Thanks to New Student Loan Caps. So here we are. We're in the post Big Beautiful Bill loan situation, and almost immediately we start to see schools lower their not I'm not quoting lowering their prices. They are lowering their prices by offering these scholarships just for everybody.
And folks, we're referring to the article on abovethelaw.com by Stacy Zaretsky. That's our source. We cite our sources here because we care
Sorry.
about that kind of thing. No, that wasn't for Amina. That was like scolding, just like general
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
media outlets who just like say shit and don't cite their sources. That we're not one of those. No, this is a great article, Amina, and thanks for pulling it for us. I think that it's so funny that they're calling it a guaranteed scholarship.
Yeah,
That's a price reduction.
it is. Yes.
If every student that gets into your law school pays a lower tuition by the same amount,
Yes.
that is a lower price.
Correct.
But of course, they're not going to say that because they can't be viewed as lowering their tuition because that's a bad look. And this is again, this is something we talked about during our big beautiful bill conversation. It's kind of like this concept in economics called sticky prices. Restaurants on their menus don't want to lower the price of an item because that has like negative optics, but they're happy to offer a discount. And it's
Right.
kind of what's happening with law schools. They're happy to say, "Oh, look at how generous we're being. Everybody gets the scholarship. Here's this awesome discount because of our generosity." It's a price reduction, for better or for
Yeah.
worse. And
Mhm.
I've promised Amina that I am not going to rant about the triple B. So that's all I'm going to say on that.
No, I mean, yeah, and to the point of like the optics, right? Like there's a quote here from the dean. So the law school that is this law school is Santa Clara Law School. And the scholarship is called the Pledge Scholarship. And essentially what it is, it's a guaranteed scholarship of $16,000 for every student for each year of their legal studies, with the purpose of helping to undercut the annual, quoting from the article here, undercut the annual federal loan cap of $50,000 for professional degree students. But yeah, so the quote from the dean is, "We're not just educating future lawyers, building a more just and equitable society. This scholarship is a strategic investment in our extraordinary students and the clients and communities they will go on to serve." So very much an optics of like, look at how much we care about how this is impacting you. Like we want you here, and we're gonna do what we can to bring you here. Guaranteed scholarship for everybody. God bless.
I mean,
Yeah.
and it's like, I don't want to, this is not criticism because I think this is a really great outcome for everybody that's
Yes.
going
Yeah.
to
Yeah. Yeah.
attend
Yeah.
Santa Clara Law School, right? Or the Santa Clara
Yes.
University School of Law, whatever it is. Um, but like, and here's another quote from Dean Kaufman of Santa Clara, right? "The Pledge Scholarship is more than a financial award. It's a promise Santa Clara Law is making to help relieve next year's students from the kind of financial pressure that might otherwise preclude them from pursuing rewarding legal careers of great prominence and purpose." Dean
Mhm.
Kaufman, who is who is creating the financial pressure? Who is creating the financial pressure that you're stating to relieve? And I
Yeah.
mean this with all the respect in the world. It's y'all. It's y'all. The financial pressure phone call is coming from inside the house. I don't know what to
Literally.
tell you. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
It's literally it's like when you walk into a department store, you walk into a Nordstrom or a whatever, and they're like 50% off. And it's like, awesome, 50% off. Then you look at the price tag and you're like, this cost what? Right? It was
Right.
two it was two hundred
Yeah.
dollars and you cut it down to 100. No, the true price of that thing is $100. They just priced it at 200 so that they could say it's 50% off.
Yeah, and again, like, to echo what Abby said, like, we're not hating on this scholarship. Like
No,
this
it's
is,
awesome.
I mean, this is what we hope to see from schools moving forward, that they'll reduce prices and make legal education more financially accessible for more people, because it's important and it's what should have been happening the entire time. But
Yeah.
yeah, we're just kind of side eyeing the optics of the
Well,
guaranteed
and look,
scholarship for
brother,
everybody.
I
Yeah,
like a PR statement as much as the next guy. So I get it, right? Like if you're gonna go through with this, you might as well come out on top and say, look at how
sure,
generous we're being. Like honestly, all respect. All
absolutely.
respect to the law school and to the administration at Santa Clara. But like, yeah, the math of it is there's an annual federal loan cap of 50 grand for professional degree students, and Santa Clara's law school tuition was 66,000, and so every student is getting a guaranteed scholarship of 16,000 to bring the tuition within the 50 grand cap. That's good
So
news. That's good news. That's $16,000 less that every student at this university will have to pay. The question is, why were they charging? Last year it was 66, and this year it's 50, and nothing's different.
like,
Hmm.
yeah, if the school could
Hmm.
just take on that 16,000 for every student for 3 years, like,
Then maybe it
what was the
wasn't.
reason of the 16,000 to begin with?
Right, right. And
Right.
again, I just want to emphasize like this is such a good thing. And I hope that
Yes.
other law schools fall into, not fall into line, but like follow the kind of leadership that schools like Santa Clara
Yeah.
are starting, which is, hey, we're not going to ask you, we're not going to expect that you take out private loans to cover the rest. We're going to match our tuition with whatever you're
Incredible.
allowed to take out from the federal government. This is kind of what we were talking about last time too, which is it turns out that when federal programs like this exist, they have an influence in setting the price of the good. Right? If
Yeah.
the federal government says we will let anybody borrow 50 grand, guess what the price of tuition is? 50 grand. It's what we told you this would happen. I don't want to fuck. I need to not rant, and I need to not say I told you so, but this is it's almost exactly what we predicted.
Well,
Um
I
I
mean,
mean, hey,
I was less optimistic, so I'm really glad to see this coming down the line.
it's great. I mean, fun fact. What do you think
Fun
pledge
fact.
stands for? And if you already know,
I
go
don't
ahead.
know. I have
Okay,
no clue, and it didn't even occur to me that it stood for something, even though it is in all caps, therefore
they've put
indicating
pledge in
that
all
it's an acronym.
caps.
Yeah.
It's so is that an acronym? Is it's an acronym when it spells out a letter, spells out a word, but then it's something else when it. No, an acronym isn't that.
Don't.
Okay, time out. We need to look up acronym definition. Now, this is important. An abbreviation formed from the initial letters of other words and pronounced as a word. So, for instance, NASA is pronounced as a word, but it's not actually a word. There's a different word for when an acronym, acronym that that is a word. Um,
Okay.
I'm still looking. Do you see anything?
I'm not looking. I'm letting you
It's an
take the lead on this
initialism.
one.
It's an initialism.
Initialism. Okay.
Yes. So an initialism is when you make an acronym that is actually a word. And so
Wow.
oftentimes the colloquial term is a backronym because you've built the acronym backwards. You started with what word you wanted to spell, and then you found words to fill in the acronym. So like they obviously wanted to say pledge here.
Yes.
PLEDGE. They wanted to say pledge, so then they found words that they could make the acronym spell a word. So we might call it a backronym too. Um, the words are promising legal education, delivering growth and excellence. That doesn't make
Wow.
sense. The grammar of that acronym doesn't make sense to me.
I mean, it's a
But I
backronym,
don't
as you
think
mentioned, so
it's a backronym. It doesn't have to.
they worked with what they had and they made
Yeah.
the most of it. They delivered growth and excellence.
They did deliver growth and excellence, and they certainly are promising a legal education. So,
So,
no
yeah.
no criticisms here, just observations and insights
Hmm.
from Aaminah and I, your friendly neighborhood law school commentators.
Hmm.
I think it's great. It's just money that's going back in the pockets of students and future lawyers. And I agree with Santa Clara's conclusion, which is when you relieve the debt burden for law students, you open up the possibilities of what kinds of legal careers they can pursue, and that is a
Yeah.
fact. That is
Yeah.
just a fact, and I agree. So kudos to y'all. Thanks for doing this, and I hope more schools follow suit.
Yep.
Cool.
Okay.
That's the current event segment. Aaminah, the next segment on the docket, wow, legal word of the week. We
Legal
kind of already
wow.
we had a little preview, remanded, uh,
Yeah.
but we have some other ones that we wanted to. Yeah, speaking of judicial opinions and speaking of cases and casebooks, speaking of legal writing and language,
Right.
there's some words that y'all might encounter, and they're like in italics sometimes, or sometimes they're not, and sometimes
Hmm.
and they're Latin words, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
So Amina, which words have you pulled for us?
Yeah, so there are a couple words that I have just been seeing super frequently in cases. And it occurs to me every time I see them, I'm like, wait, what does that mean again? Like, which one is that? They're like, I have three for today. I will get
Yeah.
into them shortly. But like three little, like, they're just really small words that you could actually just put in English, but because this is the law, we're going to put them in Latin. So our first word is inter alia, and it means among other things. I will give you an example of how this is used in legal writing. So this comes from the Cornell Law School Legal Information Institute. And the quote is in Cohen versus Cowles Media Company, the court states the court rejected respondent's argument that the First Amendment barred the suit and a jury awarded him, inter alia, compensatory damages. So again, that inter alia just means among other things. So I'll read it now, switching it back into English. The court rejected the respondent's argument that the First Amendment barred the suit and jury awarded him, among other things, compensatory damages. That's literally all you're looking at there. Another little baby word you might see in cases is supra, and supra literally just means above. So it's like in a case, they might mention a case like Cohen versus Cowell, and then later on in the argument, they'll go, in the case like, or in XYZ supra, and they're just referring to the case that they mentioned previously. The opposite of that is infra, which means below, but same usage. Yeah, so you might see little words like that, little Latin words where they don't need to be but are. Those are my legal wows this week.
I have a like a correction, I guess. And this is maybe an appropriate place to issue it because we are talking about words and their meaning. I
Hmm.
mixed up initialism and acronym just now. And so before people write in and they're like, Abby, you're stupid. And initialism is like FBI, right? Where it's just letters. Acronym is where you can say it like a word. And backronym is indeed when you kind of work backwards. I just want to clarify, yes, an initialism is when it's just letters. An acronym is when it's pronounced like a word, and we say a backronym now is like when you just start with a word and then figure out. So like Spectre from James Bond, they're like, oh, what's like a menacing word, Spectre, and then they like filled it in with words that mean Spectre. Um,
Abby, I
so
trusted you.
you should never trust me. You should never trust me, and that's a warning to everybody listening to this podcast.
No, don't
I don't
undercut
know
our credibility.
I'm not undercutting your credibility. I think Amina is
Okay,
incredibly credible. Incredibly
it's
credible.
been said.
I don't know anything and I can't read. So law school is incredibly difficult. So yeah, you should never trust anything I say. It's not that I'm lying to you, it's just ignorance.
He just doesn't know
So it's
better.
yeah, it's not any kind of like malicious intent. I just truly have no idea what's going on.
All
So
right, fair
yeah,
enough.
yeah. Anyway, thank you for those legal words of the week, folks. If you have any recommendations for words that you've encountered either in one of our Crushing 1L classes, where and we read cases together and we solve legal problems together in our Crushing 1L classes. If there's words that you encounter when you're checking those questions out and you want us to talk about them, write in. It's crushing1l.com. Write in with your recommendations for legal word of the week. I'm pushing for it to be called wow, but that's just me. Um, anyway, I'm not going to make you
No
comment on
comment.
that. Yeah, I'm not going to make you comment on that.
I don't know.
Uh,
Okay, well, honestly, I like Legal Wow. I like Lowell. They're both growing on me. I probably will end up saying Lowell if you push it hard enough. That's all.
legal wow is just it's three syllables when it could just be two.
Okay. Okay,
No.
that's
And
fine.
again, that's my opinion. That's my opinion. Okay. Anyway,
That's
uh,
my opinion.
that's my opinion. That's like everybody in law school when they're discussing a case and they're just like throwing out random hypotheticals, and the professor's like, I don't know, what do you think? That's my opinion. Anyway, enough memes. Uh,
Yeah.
our next segment, and this is where we kind of tie it to how we can help. If
Yeah.
the discussion has been interesting to y'all listening, and you're wondering, oh, cool, like I am like wrapping up my LSAT study, or even if you're in the middle of your LSAT study, but you're daydreaming about law school or zero L, prep for law school, and you'd love to just get your hands dirty. How can you do it? Well, we have a product for you. It's Crushing 1L. Anybody with a free account, a free Demon account, can access parts of it, and anyone with a paid account of any sort, basic, premium, or live, can access the rest of Crushing 1L. In fact, Amina, I
In
think we've
fact,
actually
Abby.
expanded our free offering. So not only is Law School
Oh,
Basics open to free Demon accounts, but Courts, Intro to Courts is also now open to free Demon accounts. And as we add more content, folks, we're going to expand which of that content or how much of that content is open to free accounts. So just stay tuned there. But we have a specific plug, and it's kind of relevant to everything we've been talking about. We talked about our legal writing assignments. We're talking about these legal words that you read in cases, and we talked about reading cases. Amina, what's your plug for Crushing 1L this week?
actually, honestly, Abby, you mentioned that it would be helpful to people before they get into law school, but I can't tell you how many times I just I was trying so hard to remember while you were talking, but like there was something that was said in my torts class about who could be liable, or I don't even remember, but like it was something that I had read and knew because I had read it in Crushing 1L.
Yeah.
And it's not like it didn't make a difference. Like, it's not like the professor was like, who knows the answer to this? And I was able to be like, me. But like I did know what he was going to say before he said it because I'd read it in Crushing 1L. So I also think it bears relevance to actual 1Ls. Second example of that, back to the legal memo I had to do. Part of that was citing cases. And our professor, you know, we have the blue book, and that was how I think he expected us to figure out how to cite cases. Hey, by all means. However, like
That is one way to do it, is to hand
that is
your
an
class a blue
approach.
book and go, good luck.
Yeah. Um, however, I had an idea of how to make these citations because, again, I had done it in Crushing Rental content when I
Mm.
was doing the editing, reviewing all these things for your consumption. I did the whole legal, the blue booking units, and therefore, like, even down to the point of like when I was like scrolling in on my screen, like, okay, is this period and this comma italicized, not italicized, like properly? Like, I was able to like have an awareness of those things because I had already interacted with them in Crushing Rental. So again, want to emphasize you don't have to do Crushing 1L. You will learn these things in law school. However, like it happens incredibly frequently that there are things that I did in Crushing 1L that like just like have like ring a little bell in my mind when I'm in school and I'm like, oh wait, I know what this is. And like I just have like just a slight comfort just because I'm like, oh, this is familiar territory because I did it over the summer.
And that's just like plain and simple, like learning psychology, right? Like
Yeah.
spacing out the learning. And again, like we don't want to replace your legal education yet. The point of Crushing 1L is not to replace your 1L year by any means. It's just to kind of space out the learning so that, yeah, like Amina and I were working on this content, like a bunch of us were working on this content, and we've had feedback from our teammates too that helped edit and read and produce this content. Even just the spacing effect of you read or heard something a couple months ago, and then you're hearing it for the second time, importantly, in law school instead of the first time,
Yeah.
even that small difference, your brain is like, oh shit, second time. This must be important. And unfortunately, that's how our brain works. Like, we're all like
Yeah.
lizards at the end of the day, right? Like, we're just critters, like trying to stay alive. So your brain is very survivalist in like, I'm only going to worry about stuff that happens more than a couple times. If it's a one off thing, I'm not going to really worry about it. And so that's why the spacing effect is so interesting in like in like pedagogy and like learning and teaching psychology, because if you introduce a student to an idea or a concept and then time goes by and then you reintroduce it, their brain lights up and it activates
Mhm.
like all these neurons. That we're just trying to activate your neurons, guys. We're just trying to activate your neurons.
We're
Is
just
that
trying
the
to
sa- is that
help.
the is that the sales pitch now for Crushing 1L? Is let us activate
No,
your neurons? I
absolutely
don't think
not.
so.
That
No, I
sounds
don't think
like
so. That sounds weird. It sounds weird.
questionable.
Maybe
Sounds like
again, don't
something we
listen to
don't
me.
want to be doing,
Don't
maybe
listen to me,
perhaps.
dude.
But yeah,
Don't listen to
we
me.
do just want to help you learn better, is really the idea there.
We want to activate your neurons. Anyway, yes, and
I don't
that's
endorse that, by the way.
that's fair. I've had the same thing happen to me, Mina, where it's like I'm sitting in class and like the professor or a peer, like a classmate, will say something, and it's like, oh, that rings a bell. Like I've definitely read something about that. I've definitely heard something about that. I don't like remember it. That's not the point.
Yeah, no.
you don't have to memorize the shit in Crushing 1L. That'd be stupid. But just even thinking about it before, or even thinking about like an idea, like, oh, like the idea that there's elements in like a statute,
Mm,
right? Even
mm-hmm.
that's like an abstract concept. And yet, some of our peers, when they showed up to school, like it was the first time they were encountering it. So there was some friction of like,
Yeah.
oh, like all the elements are required. Like if you're missing one of them, it breaks down versus factors. Like you can weigh different factors. You may have one, you may not have the other. That's not the point. Uh, and like that's stuff that we kind of like you'll like kind of abstractly encounter in Crushing 1L or just, in life also. But the elements of a statute are all requirements.
Mm-hmm.
And even just having that vague idea in your brain going into like a torts class where they're like, what are the elements of negligence or whatever? And it's like, oh, okay, cool. Like, I know I need to have all this stuff.
Yeah, and I think another thing that like helps with the learning better, with what we've done with Crushing One is it's easy to understand. Whereas like some of these concepts where you might hear them the first time in class are not as easy to understand. I promise you. I'm like, if I didn't know what I was looking at right now, or if I didn't have any idea what I was looking at, it would take me so much longer to process this because I would have to like go through that extra step of putting it into plain English and like then that induces my own like not induces but like creates my own like culpability and potential to like mess it up.
Yeah.
I just used the term culpability there, but I don't think I used it correctly, so strike that from the record. But in any case, like
There
it
goes
just,
your there goes
like
your credibility, dude. So sad.
yeah, like it just there's that factor of like maybe I'm misinterpreting it, but like with Crushing One now, we've done so much vetting, so much work on making sure that it's digestible and like easy to understand and correct. Um, it's just such a good basis to then approach these concepts in class and then be like, oh wait, okay, this was that, right? Yeah. So yeah, check it out. Check it out.
And I can't emphasize this enough. Like a bunch of it's free. Like we really like we literally don't want your money. We want your money for some of it because it was hard to make, but for some of it, we don't want your money. We want to increase access to legal education. That's the point of this podcast. We're giving it to you for free. That's the point of Crushing 1L. We're giving parts of that for free too. So come check it out, folks. That's enough sales pitching. I mean, I think our sales pitch can succinctly be summarized into we're trying to activate your neurons. So anyway, that did you have any other comments to make, Amina, before I sign us out?
No, except
That's
that
a
I
crazy
just
thing to end on.
we want to help you learn better, faster.
Okay, cool. Well, that's all we had, folks. That's it for this episode of Crushing 1L. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, or share it with someone thinking about law school. If you have a question, please write into the pod. You can just go to crushing1l.com. Again, that's the number one, crushing1l.com, with any questions, comments, or concerns. I'm Abhi. This is Amina. Until next time, keep crushing it.